actually is very relevant and important to building habits. And so this is our Abbot's Dharma talk today. First of all, he starts with reminding us that there's a very important Buddhist holy day coming, which is Maghabusha Day. And then he asked us if we knew why it's even more significant for our temple on the Dhammagaya Foundation. And this is very interesting, but the Dhammagaya Foundation was actually formed on Maghabusha Day. So it's a very significant day for our center. And with that, what came about was trying to understand how the Dhammagaya Foundation even formed and how we began and became a temple. And so the Venerable said that he heard this sermon many years ago. I believe it was a sermon that was done almost 42 years ago, and he heard it 22 years ago is my understanding of it. But the point is, what happened was there were many Venerables that came to Dhammagaya Center, and how it started was there were a lot of people who were ordained at our center, and there was so much interest in Buddhism that it became evident and obvious that we needed to create a temple. So in order to have a temple, you have to have abbots, and different senior monks pretty much approve it. So many different abbots came to check out the temple, and they realized that it was so beautiful, unlike any other temple that they had seen. It was very clean and very orderly, and there was a lot of people that came to the services. So one of the senior monks asked, how did this come about in terms of how did Dhammagaya create this type of atmosphere? And what happened is it turned out that before actually having a temple, our Vice Abbot went around looking at different temples to try to see the best qualities that they had. Some weren't really that well taken care of, and others were taken care of very well. So he took the best ones that he was able to exemplify and took the good things and implemented it for our Dhammagaya Center. And essentially there were three things that he realized, not only from looking at different temples in Thailand, but also his research. So before actually creating the temple, he did some research and found something in the Pali Canon to kind of exemplify what a temple should be. So the first thing is a temple should always have, be clean, meaning it should be swept often. Another thing is that a temple should always have chanting and meditation. And the third thing is a temple should always have the teachings and the Dharma. So these are the three things that a temple should have in order to maintain success. And this is something that our Abbot actually researched and found in the Pali Canon. So he implemented these qualities for our center. And one of the things is even our kunyai, this was very important to her too, which is being clean and orderly. So it was always something that was very ingrained in our temple atmosphere and environment. One of the things that the Venerable mentioned was even when the Abbot was doing research, he found out about a Venerable who actually had these qualities and really loved to be clean. And this is one of the examples that he took to actually create a similar environment and atmosphere for our center. So this Venerable's name, and he's in the Pali Canon, is Venerable Pasalibut. And basically, he just loved to be clean and orderly. It was just something that was built inside of him that he had a habit for. And he had 8 qualities that the Venerable mentioned. The first is, first of all, before doing alms round, he would always be left behind. He didn't go do alms round with everyone else just yet because he really wanted to take care of the temple. So 8 qualities that he had was 1, he would often sweep the temple before doing alms round. He would make sure that the garbage was thrown away. The third thing that he would do would fill the water if it needed to be filled. He would also clean up the beds and make sure everything was in order. And then he would look after any sick monks, asking if he can help or how he can assist. In addition to that, he always made sure that everything was in order. and taken care of and clean. Not only would he ask the monks if they needed anything, but he would tend to their needs and get medicine for them if they needed. In addition to that, he would also do his alms round, and when he would do his alms round, he was the one who would stay in the back. So the Buddha would be at the front, and there might be other venerables in the middle. He would be at the back just because he wanted to notice and see if any of the other venerables in front of him needed help. Sometimes their foot might be aching and they might need some sort of ointment, and he would kind of be observant to see that they might need this, and then he would take care of their needs. So these were the 8 qualities that he exemplified, and he actually ended up attaining arahantship because of just his good qualities of wanting to be clean and taking care of everyone. So the abbot, when he read this, realized that, oh wow, this is really why being clean and orderly is truly a good habit to instill in the temple life. So this is one example of why our temple really pinpoints just being clean and orderly, is from the examples of the Pali Canon and what our abbot learned. In addition to that, the Venerable wanted to also point out another thing. Not only in the spiritual world can cleaning and being orderly help, but also in the material world as well, or just in your daily life. And with this, he used an example of T. Booker Washington, which many of us should know that him. He's a historical figure, and he was actually born a slave and had a very hard life, a life where he would have to pick cotton. And one day, as he got older, he was invited to come stay in the plantation, where in the plantation he would clean. That was his role, was cleaning the house and being part of the staff. Now, the owner of the plantation was very meticulous when it came to being clean and orderly, so much so that he instilled it in his staff that they had to just have those same habits and qualities in order to stay in the plantation. So this instilled a habit in T. Booker where he just was a very clean person, because he ended up doing housekeeping. So it was a quality that stayed in him, that even if he went out on the road, on the street, and he'd see garbage, he would pick it up and throw it away because it was instilled in him. Well, T. Booker Washington really wanted an education, and he really wanted to go to school, but he was a slave and didn't have any money, and at the time it was very difficult to have an education if you were a Black American. However, he went into school, he applied to try to take classes, and he got denied. But one of the things that he was able to do was clean the classrooms and the hallways and the cafeteria. And because of those efforts, the education system of the school saw that and wanted to help him, because he was just so clean and so meticulous and did such a fine job that they wanted him to be in their school. So with that came his opportunity, an opportunity that's very rare for somebody during that time of his decree. So he ended up going to school, so much so that he ended up being a doctor. And from there, he was able to truly change Black American lives and help to bring education into the country. And that is why he is a historical figure even today. We'll see him having statues erected and being in our history books. So it all started with simply being clean. So this is an example of that, and how being clean can lead to success. And yet one more example in the spiritual sense in Buddhism. And this is also in the Pali Canon. There's a Venerable, and he lived in Sri Lanka. And in Sri Lanka, there was a sitya. And this Venerable just loved to clean, and he was always sweeping the sitya. The sitya often would have like sand around it, just because people would bring dirt onto the grounds. So this monk would always just sweep. That was his duty, and he loved it. And every time that he cleaned, it just made him feel happy and bright, that he was just making the environment and the sitya a nice place for people to come to. So one day, Mara saw this, and Mara wanted to see how significant and how important cleaning truly is to this Venerable. So he wanted to test him. And what he did was, the first day, he disguised himself as a monkey. And then the monkey just had all this dirt and just very dirtied up the whole entire sitya and made it very difficult. And when the Venerable saw that, he got upset because it was really messy and he knew it was going to take him a long time to clean the area. But nonetheless, he didn't just let it dissuade him. He ends up cleaning the whole sitya after the monkey had dirtied everything up. And it was fine, because that's just what he did and he enjoyed cleaning. So the second day, Mara disguised himself as an old cow. And this time, the old cow ends up pooing everywhere around the sitya. Nonetheless, the Venerable still cleans it up and sweeps it. And then the third day, this time Mara disguised himself as a man with a limp. Now, this man with the limp didn't seem right. First of all, he had never seen him at the center before. And this man with the limp ends up bringing all the sand and dirt onto the sitya, making a big mess yet again. So this time the Venerable thinks to himself, something is going on. This is just, too coincidental for every day there just to be all this amount of cleaning I have to do. So he asked this man, this old man, he asked him, are you disguised as an old man and you're actually Mara? And then Mara says, yes, that's correct. You're right. And Mara, as we all know, has a lot of power as well, supernatural powers. But his power is more along the lines of greed, anger, and delusion. But yet he still has power within himself. And so the Venerable knew this. And the Venerable, being a Buddhist monk, asked him, I know that you've got a lot of power. Can you please show me how the Buddha looks like? Because this Venerable was very curious and knew that Mara could disguise himself as anything he wanted to. So this Mara wanting to show off and, being in essence of being able to do whatever he wants and wanting to prove it, says, of course I can. So Mara disguises himself as Buddha. And keep in mind that even though he tried to disguise himself as Buddha, it was just a version of the Buddha, a look-alike, but nothing even in comparison, but nonetheless a good representation. And when the Venerable saw Mara disguising himself as Buddha and realized how beautiful Mara was able to make himself as a Buddha, he realized if Mara can do this, what about the real Buddha? The real Buddha has to be beyond comparison. So just thinking of that made his mind just radiate with happiness and joy, so much so that in that moment of happiness, of joy and peace of mind, he was able to attain arahantship. And it all started with simply cleaning and being orderly. So these are just examples of why it's important for us to try to have such qualities within our life. It might seem small and trivial, but in the end, it truly does build habit within us. And the Venerable left us with one other thing, and this is for those of us who have to hire people or work with other people or end up being in business with other people. He says, make sure that you train those around you and your coworkers or your subordinates that it's very important to just simply be clean and orderly, because these qualities help to build habit within you, which helps to purify your mind. And from purifying your mind, you just have more wisdom to see right and wrong. And essentially that leads to Dharma. And that's why it's important. Being able to see right and wrong simply is just the understanding of Dharma. So that's the beauty of it. And the Venerable left us with one other thing, which is UG5, universal goodness, and there's 5 of them. And this is something that builds the foundation of our temple and into everyone that comes, and something that we often try to teach so that people can have it in their lives. And the 5 qualities are: 1, to be clean; 2, to be orderly; 3, to be disciplined; 4, to be on time; and 5, awareness. And the Venerable says that all of the countries in the world, the ones that are successful, they have these 4 first qualities. However, what's the most important is to add the 5th one, which is awareness. And so this is what the Venerable left us with today. It's Tana. So at this time, I turn back over to the Venerables for blessings.